Hey, coaches, welcome to Championship Culture. Got a fantastic guest tonight. Kenny Simpson is the head football coach at Searcy High School in Arkansas. Kenny is a wing tee guru. He has a magnificent online presence and does a lot of great things there. He is a 13-year head football coaching veteran at 3 different stops. And he just did a belly presentation for me a little while ago, and just absolutely has his system wired in. But I'll tell you, Kenny, I'm most impressed. I see your head coaching stuff that you did on YouTube, and I think maybe I get it on Facebook sometimes. And I'm just always super impressed with the way you attack being a head coach and the way you can help coaches learn how to be a head coach. So excited to have you on here, buddy. I appreciate you doing this.
Oh man, no problem. And this is the stuff that I think is overlooked in our profession a lot. And so I'm really glad guys like you are doing this. I'm having the opportunity to talk on a couple of these clinics, and but everyone wants to learn an X and O because that's easy and clean and simple. But the stuff you're doing right now, you want to be a head coach, this is the stuff that's really going to turn around your program.
I always relate it to special teams. Everyone talks about how important special teams are, but very few actually dig in and practice it. And I think that's how culture is. I think we all innately know how important it is to build culture and build your program, but it's kind of difficult, and not a lot of people want to dig in there and actually roll up their sleeves and learn how to do it. But I know you're an expert at it, and I'm really wanting to steal your ideas. So question number 1, can you give a 1-minute elevator introduction of yourself?
Sure. My name is Coach Simpson. Like Coach mentioned, I've had 3 different stops as a head coach. Most recently, I'm at Searcy. Before then, that's a 6A school in Arkansas, for those of you who may not be familiar. Before then, I was at a 4A school in Arkansas at Southside, Batesville. They had been on a 20-some-odd game losing streak. Was able to take them. It took a while, but we were able to build it where we won conference 2 the last 3 years I was there. Very stable place, great people to be around, and it was a lot of fun to kind of build that program up. Before then, I was in Montgomery, Alabama. I was a head coach at Alabama Christian Academy. They had been 4-16 before I took over. I was able to take them to their first home playoff berth in like 20 some odd years. They're doing really well now, so it's awesome to kind of see what they've done since I've left. Before then, I was at Madison Academy, where I watched as a young coach how the coach could turn around a culture. So I've kind of been a part of multiple ones of those. Fortunately for me, recently I stepped into Searcy, where they've had a little more success. I've got 3 children, and so 2 of them are at the school system with me or close with me. One's a 7th grade boy playing in my program. One is a 9th grade girl. And then I've got a 3rd who's in the 2nd grade and will be working his way up. Most importantly, I've got a lady behind me who makes me look a lot better than I really am. And she's probably the reason I'm doing a lot of what I'm doing. Her name is Jamie.
Awesome. It's important to have those quarterbacks coming up in the pipeline there. So you're doing a good job.
Well, this one's probably going to be a wingback and a safety. So.
All right. So question number 2 is, how do you define culture in your program?
To us, culture to me is, what are the kids' expectations? To me, what are they expected to do on and off the field? What are they expected to do when nobody's around? And to me, the hardest part about culture is it's really hard to mold. As far as a coach, you can force people to do things. In my experience, that's not really culture. That's kids doing what you're telling them to do. So for me, I'm maybe a little bit different than some of your other guests, I don't know, but I'm a big fan of allowing the kids to kind of fail and trial and error and mentor them to be the leaders of the program. I'm a real big believer of teaching them to have some ownership and having a lot of one-on-one conversations behind closed doors. But short answer for you, to me, culture is when you walk into a place, what are the expectations there? You can tell it pretty quick.
Awesome. All right. Question number 3 is the big kind of nuts and bolts one. What are the 3 best things you do to build culture in your program? So we're looking for some ideas we can steal, Coach.
Sure, no, that's fine, and I've put a book out, Find a Way, and I've got some things in there that will probably delve more deeply into some of this stuff. But one of the deals we've tried to do is I've tried to teach young men where I want them to go when they leave. You know, the impact I want them to have when they're out of my program. And so we do a lot of things kind of in that world, where we do some father-son retreats, where we talk about the roles of fathers, and that can be a very dirty, gritty world you get into because half of them don't have dads, you know, or they don't have, so they have not had that role model. Well, if someone doesn't have that conversation with them of what's expected of them when they leave, nobody will. And so we try to do a lot of things talking with these young men about the responsibility they're going to have when they leave. And there's no need to be ashamed if you don't have a dad. I mean, you did nothing wrong. But what are you going to do when you leave? So we try to do a lot of stuff in that world. We do a mother-son retreat, kind of that same vein of how do you treat a date? You know, your mom is your date. You're going to dress up. You're going to seat her. You're going to take care of, you're going to hug your mom, and you're going to tell her how much you appreciate her, and teaching them how to treat women. You know, so that's one big thing we try to do, is teach them how men are supposed to act. You know, a lot of times that can be very confusing in our society, especially for kids that maybe don't have a role model to show them. And so we want to serve in that role. So that's one big thing that I think we do. I'm a big person, mentioned earlier in this, about allowing kids to mentor other kids and to learn and grow as leaders. So just a real quick example, I don't have some built-in program. You know, to me, I try to do it in everything we do. So when we're putting our weight room groups together, I'm intentionally putting seniors with sophomores, and I'm not just doing that, I'm telling them, I'm doing this because this kid needs help with X, Y, and Z. You need help with X, Y, and Z. And teaching the senior how to grow up and mentor somebody who needs it, and also giving that sophomore someone he can look to and go to. So it's kind of a two-way goal there. But I'm a huge believer in that. I'm not. There's nothing wrong with having a kind of a leadership in a box class. There's good stuff with that. There's a lot of good stuff. When you're looking for ideas, I go get that stuff. But I think it's something you have to live out daily. It's something you've got to do all the time, where you're constantly, hey, instead of me going over and getting on that kid who's losing it at practice, I'm going to go grab the senior. Hey, I need you to go help me out with so-and-so. He's having a hard time with this. I do the same thing with my coaches. You know, my younger coaches, those kids are going to talk to them. I'm old now. So I kind of do a lot more delegating probably than a traditional coach would do, where I'm going to allow them. And there's even times that I've got to kind of step in and go, whoa, 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 okay, we got to kind of pump the brakes on that a little bit. But I want them to feel the freedom in our program that it's theirs. So I think that's kind of the second thing I do, is I give a lot of responsibility, not just to players, but to assistant coaches. And that's where I want to go with the third one, is I try to do a lot of mentoring with my assistants. You know, and so that's, where do you want to be? Do you want to be a head coach? Are you okay to be an assistant coach? You know, and then try to modify my roles within that vein. So if it's a guy who's 45 years old, getting close to the end of his career, I'm comfortable just being an assistant coach and I'll work my tail off. That's fine. You know, we're going to give you these roles that I expect you to do, and you're going to work hard. If it's a 26-year-old that wants to be a head coach, okay, we're going to fast track you and we're going to give you all these other things you can do. And then I try to find off the field things my coaches are good at. So if I've got a coach who's naturally very charismatic, okay, well, he may have more responsibility speaking in front of the team. He may have more responsibility helping me go raise money. You have that kind of coach who's more analytical. He might be the guy in charge of our huddle and in charge of our stat breakdown. And so giving them ownership and roles within your system, I think, to me, has allowed our coaches to understand that they may not like me all the time, but they do know I have their best interest at heart.
Awesome. Can you give just a brief example? Your father-son retreat. Can you give a brief example of one of those?
Sure. And I completely got this from Ronnie Peacock. I actually paid him to come in and do this. So I want to give him all the credit. He actually coached me at Greenwood, Arkansas, retired now. Since then, though, I've learned I can kind of do these on my own. But basically what we'll do, it depends on how big your program is. For us, we're usually going to do it for one class, you know, seniors, we'll take them off, go into some area. It could be a church camp, it could be a camping, it could be whatever you're kind of comfortable with. And then we do multiple activities. Some are fun activities, you know, father-son bago, father-son basketball, father-son whatever. Some are what I call kind of like metaphors. So I'll give you one activity we do. We do multiple ones like this. We do what we call landmines. And so basically you'll go in like an area, you'll mark off an area, put a bunch of just junk all in there, and you'll blindfold the kid. And the kid's got to get from point A to point B. And the dad has to give instructions. And so you put 50 people in there, you can imagine how loud that becomes, how frustrating that becomes. And so we get there and the kids finally get across, and there's some arguments I've seen happen right there, right then. That's life as we know it. We talk a lot about how there's a lot of noise. There's one person in this world who cares about you more than anybody, and it's that guy. And a lot of times this noise gets in our head and we can't hear him. And the dads love that part. They don't love the part where I switch it. And now they got to listen to their kid. That's when all the arguments happen, because you know kids' instructions: step to the right, how far? Oh, just step, you know. So talk about how we've got to learn to communicate with our fathers. We've got to learn to explain to them. And then dads, your kid is about to be in the real world as a man. Are you treating him that way? Have you given him? And so there's a lot of things like that. And that's, if I ever get out of coaching, I want to go around the world doing that. I think there's so much good that comes out of that.
How long does that last? Is it just an overnight? Is it a couple days? How does that work?
We've varied it depending on our budget, but generally it's best to go at least 2 days. You want to get that where they're together 2 days. And we do other things, like we'll do an interview inside of that where I write out questions, because you know guys don't know how to talk. I don't know how to talk to my own son. So you write it out so it's kind of there. We do letters. The kids will write a letter to mom, they'll write a letter to dad. We do a lot of pretty deep things. And like I mentioned, I came up with none of this. I stole it from this person and that person and that person and just kind of put it together. I would recommend, if you do it as a coach, and it's the best thing that we've done. I hated that COVID hit this year and I didn't get to do it.
How do you handle the no dad kids?
Yeah, that's awkward. I mean, that's the reality, but you know what? Our world is awkward. I mean, that's just kind of how it is. And so we allow them to choose if they have a male role model, like say they have an uncle or a grandfather or maybe a significantly older brother. We would like it not to be a 19-year-old, but somebody who's in that role. But you're going to have a lot of kids that don't. So we allow them to pick a community member, or if they can't find one of those, which you're going to have a lot of those, then it becomes an assistant coach. And you want to be humbled, have a kid ask you to stand in for his dad. Man, you talk about, as a coach, you're 26 years old and you're that kid's dad. Man, that changes how you look at things. You know, that changes how you react to that kid. So I think it's important, even if the dad's not there, that it's important these kids are here, because one day, I mentioned it, they're going to be dads. They're going to be fathers. They're going to be husbands. And if nobody has taught them, you know, we're going to have the same problem we've been having going on now for 100 years.
That's we do a dad's night, and that's one of the things we talk about is, you know, how lucky you are if your dad's here.
Yep.
But then how important it is if your dad's not, because now it's going to be your turn. What kind of dad are you going to be? So I'm 100% with you. And just briefly, the mom son, is that more like a dinner date kind of thing?
Yeah, it is. We've done different things. We did a paint night one year where they had to kind of couple paint. I've heard of other, we didn't do it. I've heard other places that'll do like a dance where they've got to bring in a dance instructor, and anything you get them where they're bonding. So I wouldn't recommend movies, but other things where they've got to work together. And then I'll pay X amount of money for those photo booths. My wife will come in and take their pictures, and it's pretty easy to find some church wanting to sponsor that, or someone wanting to sponsor that and feed them for free. And so, you know, I've done multiple things. I try to mix it up. I was at Southside for 9 years, so we would try to do something different every year. You know, now I'm at Cersei, I'll be able to recycle some of those, so that'll make it a little bit, but it's an easy night. You know, and we do that with every kid, so they can do that multiple times. And by far, most moms, that's the thing they like the most.
That's awesome. Awesome. Okay. Question number 4. What do you know now that you wish you knew when you first got started?
Oh, geez. Yeah. I wrote a whole book on that. So, I was a lot, probably the main thing I would say is the impact of your words. Like I knew that at 25, at 27, at 30 as a head coach. You don't really know that until you're my age now. And a 30-year-old who you coach starts telling stories that you're old and don't even remember. Like I don't, I know it happened, but I don't remember that. And some of those stories, are really good, funny stories. You're like, man, that's pretty awesome. And then I start thinking about, man, there were a lot of times where I wanted culture, but the pressure of winning probably forced me to say things, or didn't force me, I chose, but it pressured me to say things and treat kids in a way that they didn't deserve to be treated. Nobody signs up for your program and says, I'm going to be lazy and do this to spite the coach. Nobody signs up for that. But a lot of times, and I've been 0-10, when you're in those situations, a lot of things will come out that I regret now.
Yeah, I'm with you. I also think those 0-10 years, you're coaching your tail off as hard as you
Oh, yes.
can. And sometimes those 10-0 years, it just happens a lot easier because you got the players and everything's flowing. So I think the fans have it wrong. It's those 0-10 years, man. Some of my best coaching has been on an 0-10 team.
Yeah.
And
I was proud. I'll tell you what,
coaching,
the kids we had were seniors, they went 0-10 for us. Great group of kids, obviously not super talented, but we played the conference champs. We're 0-9 playing a like 8-1 or 9-0 team, and we were winning going in the fourth quarter. And I thought, I've been 10-1. I've won the conference championship. I've gotten awards for different things. That night, I might have been the most proud of a loss I've ever been. We ended up falling apart there at the end. But man, that group fought their tail off with nothing to play for. It was unbelievable.
That's awesome. Awesome. All right. So we're finishing up. You gave your contact information in the other one. So can you share your contact information and then everything you want to promote and particularly which was it, the Find a Way book that's
Right.
more about culture?
Absolutely. Yeah. The Find a Way book. I wrote that. And one of the chapters is mistakes I've made. And so I think it's important as coaches that we put that stuff out there that, hey, look, I've made a bunch of mistakes. Don't do these things, So Find a Way. You can get that. It's on my website. It's also on Amazon. But everything I've got for contact to keep things simple is just FB Coach Simpson. So my website is fbcoachsimpson.com. My email is fbcoachsimpson@gmail.com. My Twitter handle is @fbcoachsimpson. I've got my own YouTube channel as well. I wish I could name that one FB Coach Simpson, would be easier, but that's probably the easiest ways to contact me. And I try my best, if I can't get back with you in the day, to at least get back as quickly as possible. Because I think that's the way I was brought up. And so I feel indebted to the coaches who kind of mentored me now that the tables have flipped to be the guy to help other people.
Can you compare the two, which I'm sure if you read one, you're going to want to get the other one, but can you compare the Find a Way book and the basketball, the Coach Like a Basketball Coach book?
Find a Way, very different. Yeah, very different books. And I had a lot of fun writing both of them. I've written actually 3 books. One of them is very much on culture, but it's not very popular. I wrote Find a Way. That was my first book, and it is basically a manual for a guy who wants to become a head coach. And it kind of goes chapter about get the job, interviewing for the job. Now you have the job, handling coaches, handling budgets, it's basically kind of a how-to manual for coaches. So a lot of younger coaches have really liked that. I wrote it very plain language. I mean, I kind of just try to speak and don't put any fluff. So it's in there. Then the second book I actually wrote came out during quarantine. It is Training Athletes Beyond the Game. It's very much a culture. It's very much a Christian book as well. So I just tell stories about athletes that are in there, try to have a Bible verse that represents that as well. That's also on my website on Amazon. And then probably the more popular one that just came out was the basketball one, and that's Coaching Football Like a Basketball Coach. And that's much more philosophy oriented about how to see the game, how the game is fluid. There is some culture things in there, but a lot more schematic. a lot more. These are different things you can do to maybe spice up your offense or defense. And I used to be a basketball coach, so I draw from that kind of world.
And then you're doing something on Wednesday nights.
Yeah, Wednesday night Zooms. I'm bringing in kind of like what you're doing, but I'm bringing in guys. So trying to do different worlds. So I've got a couple of defensive guys that are coming in. Cody Alexander's coming in on one. I got Roger Holmes. I would consider him to be the wing tee guru now. He's coming in on one.
I'm an air raid guy, and I know who he is.
Yeah, those guys are the dudes now. And so I brought in some kind of heavy hitters. And all I'm doing is we're not charging very much. I'm paying these guys for their time. They're going kind of away from their family. I want to make sure I'm taking care of them. So it's on my website if they want to register for it. I'll also have free stuff rolling through YouTube. I'm trying to put out, 5-6 videos a week. But that's kind of a pretty cool deal. And then we've got a big clinic coming up, Wings and Things clinic I've been a part of with Rick Stewart, another one of my guys that I learned so much from and getting to work with. And it's kind of cool. I mean, obviously, being in this world, that social media has a lot of really ugly parts, but the parts that are great are these kind of parts where you can connect to coaches.
Well, buddy, I sure do appreciate you doing this. And obviously, you did a great job. And I promise you, I'm a big fan of yours on the internet and the things that you put out. And I appreciate you coming on and talking, buddy.
I appreciate what you're doing. This is great stuff for younger coaches. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.